to Beyond BIM. Today's episode is another deeper look into the future state of BIM for 2021 and beyond. We also touch upon macro BIM adoption from an academic perspective. I had the pleasure of speaking to Professor Mohamed Kassem, who joined me to share his thoughts on the debates around the future state of BIM in 2021 and beyond. We also glean on insights from his work into macro BIM adoption, and in line with all things beyond BIM, we even talk about blockchain. If you don't know who Mohamad is, he's the Professor of Digital Construction and Engineering at Northumbria University in Newcastle. He's considered an expert into his work on research in digitalization and digital transformation of construction and built environment. But his work spans across 4 intertwined themes. That is, technology, processes, people, and policy. From his experience with consultancy appointments that have had a global reach with governments and public sector bodies, I thought it's probably best to find out more about macro BIM directly from Mohamed, and also to discuss what the future state of BIM looks like, particularly from the policy perspective. And now, let's hear more from Mohamed directly on the future state of BIM and beyond. Okay, so thank you very much, Mohamed, for joining us on Beyond BIM. Now, to start off with, I would like to get to know a little bit more from your perspective on what are your thoughts on the state of BIM for 2021 in the UK. And maybe you could also talk a little bit about some of the technologies that might push us beyond BIM.
Thank you very much, Erika, for having me. I think it's very useful to give a little bit of context to the question. And it's good to start really by reviewing slightly the past, the last 10, 15 years, very briefly, really what happened to BIM. I think what happened over the last 10, 15 years is it took us a long time to recognize that BIM is not only a technology. Unfortunately, we debated for a long time the definition until academically you can look at the definition. Very few academics define BIM holistically, but for most of us in academia, but also in industry, it took us a while to really broaden the connotation of BIM to include process and policy. Only when countries like the UK started looking at BIM holistically across the life cycle, multidisciplinary, across different built assets, only then we started really understanding BIM as a holistic concept that's not only about building, that's not only about technology. However, some good definition existed before that, but unfortunately, most of us don't follow the academic definition until they see a major example, a major shock like happened, for example, with certain country pushing the adoption of BIM. So having that, after reaching this point where we know what BIM is currently, what we have the academia, we have the process player who are the construction sector, and we have the technology players. And the speed of what BIM means in the next year or the next few years is different among those 3 layers. Process players, which is the general construction industries, that are currently focused on BIM as an information management, not anymore a technology, which is really a good thing. There is lots of legacy to catch up in terms of information management. The technology developers, I think they are a little far ahead of academia, far ahead of the process players, and they are looking into advanced way of collaborating over the cloud. They're looking into computational design, into artificial intelligence, and so on. Academia, somehow similar to the technology players, technology developers, but we in academia are not as good as a technology player in advancing and commercializing our innovation, but we more or less we are working on the same topic: computational design, generative design, AI, and cloud collaboration and automation. These are the main topic more or less in terms of this year and the next few years across the 3 player types.
So there's quite a lot of layers to think about even into 2021. So not just solely on the technology. Now, maybe I would like to then move on to some of the work that you've done as well. So far, you've been doing research on macro BIM adoption, and I also had the pleasure of interviewing Bilal Sukar, who you've also collaborated with on this topic. Now, could you give us a little overview of the research you've done on this particular topic to date, and what are some of the drivers behind your particular interest in that topic? And what can we expect in the future from you with
Sure.
regards to that topic?
Yeah, I mentioned earlier how long it took for BIM to be adopted at market-wide level. And when BIM adoption started at market-wide level, all policymakers didn't have any tools, decision-making support systems, or any kind of tools really to develop policies for market-wide transformation. So we identified that issue back in 2011, and we started working on it. After doing some of the legwork, some of the foundational work that was really successful in terms of it helped us to work on a similar real world consultancy for several government around the world. Then we, with Bilal Sukar, we set up the BIM Excellence Initiative, where we positioned this work as a project called Macro BIM Adoption. And the reason behind it, we want to give policymakers and public sector bodies the tools that help them to digitally transform the construction sector in a more, let's say, in an evidence-based way, in a research-driven way, rather than just learning from case studies that happen elsewhere. So we've been working on this now, and the next big step we are doing is we are developing 3 types of survey, because we realized over time there are lots of surveys, and you are aware of many surveys that goes back to 2013 saying adoption level were 59 and 79%. If they were true, we would have now full adoption. So there is lots in the design of surveys used in academia. There's lots in academia, but also in practice, those commissioned surveys. There's lots of subjectivities. There's lots of opinions. The responses aren't verified. So what we are doing to address this problem, and not just to improve the way surveys are done, but to understand how macro BIM adoption happen within markets, we are developing 3 types of survey. One that looks at the organization, within a market, one that looks at policy environment, and one that looks at educational environment. Those 3 surveys together, they can give you a clear idea about the maturity of BIM in a market. And if you do that over like 50 countries, if you are able to assess using those 3 surveys, 50 countries, you will be able to really do lots of analysis in terms of what works, what doesn't work. So currently, we've been designing those surveys, believe it or not, for 13 months, and we haven't finished designing them. Yeah, and the idea really is to remove totally the subjectivity. So there'll be no single question that's subjective. So hopefully we aim to finish those surveys in the next couple of months, and we will launch them across almost 50 countries worldwide with some automation, with some dashboarding, and hopefully some data analytics in future to understand what works, what doesn't work in terms of macro BIM adoption. So that's the plan currently we are working on.
So we could have like the first global mass BIM survey as a result of this work.
Yes, the way we are doing it, of course, it's a major effort. So the way we are doing it, for each survey type, we partner with a local institution. So it's not our relationship is not with individuals. So for example, within a given country, we partner with a university to take care of the educational environment survey. We partner with a public sector body or an association to take care of the policy environment survey, and with a perhaps professional body to take care of the organization survey. So this is where we are. We're heading, hopefully in the new year, we'll be launching those 3 types of survey.
Sounds exciting. And I know that on top of all of that work that you're doing, you're also a collaborator on the Construction Blockchain Consortium. So maybe you might also enlighten our listeners more about the relevance of blockchain technology in the built environment specifically.
Yeah, we are currently, I was lucky at Northumbria University to set up a PhD 4 years ago on blockchain in construction. Was the first PhD worldwide on the subject. So that gave us a little bit of advantage in terms, because we were able to put some of the publication in very respected journals. We were the first to put some of the publication. So we built quite a lot of collaboration as a result of that. Currently, one of the collaboration is with the Construction Blockchain Consortium, and we, as you know, the Construction Blockchain Consortium work on sharing knowledge and advancing, basically understanding the implication of digital innovation. One of those innovations is blockchain. So we are working on a white paper with CBC that's going to be issued before the summer, looking at the implication of blockchain to the built environment, and as well how BIM and blockchain can have complementary roles. So this is a current paper, of course, like with a cybersecurity implication, you are involved in that. And my PhD student, Jenny, is as well working in terms of application of blockchain.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of application of blockchain in construction, there are many, many applications. People would be surprised to hear how many applications there are. There are even actually categories for applications. So if you take the category of information management, there are at least 7-8 publication is spanning across digital record, traceability systems, traceability of decision, automation of administration, and so on. There are really many applications, because many people, when you say blockchain, they immediately associate it with smart contract, and they talk about payment. It's not only about payment. Blockchain is one specific type of let's say, distributed ledger technologies. So we are looking in this paper, we are looking at all possible application of blockchain, how blockchain make part of the wider technological systems that offer solution to many of the challenges we have in construction. So there are really payment application, information management application, supply chain application. Actually, within the academic literature, there are almost currently, just in construction, not the wider built environment, there are about 140 plus papers investigating application of blockchain and distributed ledger technologies in construction. In terms of anticipated benefits, there are really, really many anticipated benefits. They haven't been measured because most of the research still providing proof of concept, very few real world application. But blockchain applications are really coming up, and there is significant interest around it from, I would say, most leading universities.
Wow. So we can expect that more uptake, at least piloting commercially, is going to also take place in the construction sector.
Of course, I think this is next step now, because we recently, with my PhD student, Jenny, we did a systematic review where we looked at all application. We mapped something like about 140 application. Only 28% of those applications are presenting proof of concept, and a lower percentage are presenting real world applications. This is a normal trajectory, and usually that many technologies follow. So we expect soon to be seeing proof of concept, but also real world technology being used.
Excellent. And I think for those listeners that are outside of academia, they might also be interested to know, from your perspective as an academic, you read and write a lot of peer-reviewed papers. What are some of the biggest debates or trending topics that academics are focusing on right now when it comes to digitization of the built environment?
Yeah, there are actually one of the topics that's of debate. Is a digital twin, of course, a digital twin versus BIM. And interestingly, I've been looking at social media discussion, and I was able to categorize the views in three. those like unconvinced, there are a category of people say, actually, there is nothing called digital twin. This is a rebranding of BIM, unconvinced. So, yeah, and then you have the committed, those who are convinced that digital twin is the next big thing, and they don't see any contradiction or overlap between digital twin and any other concept. And then in between those two are the undecided, those who say, okay, there is something called digital twin. Let's look at it, and let's look at it objectively to see how it relate, how it overlap, how it contradict existing or competing or related concepts. So I actually am writing about these things now in these days. And so this is in terms of big debate, unfortunately, currently on social media, but also in academia and the peer-reviewed world, the same debate is reflected. Not to the, and you can actually create a parallel between the three categories I mentioned and the views in peer-reviewed literature. In peer-reviewed literature, I found as well there are three kind understanding. Those who says digital twin start where BIM ends. So that's one view or one understanding. Another view, they're saying actually they are totally two distinct concepts. And for example, there was Raphael Sachs' report from CDBB recently who argue for this vision. There are two distinct concepts, and they put emphasis on the promptness of feedback or from sensor to the digital replica as one of the distinguishing things between BIM and digital twin. But there is a third view as well, a third understanding who says they're actually complementary technology and they coexist. So this is where we are in terms of social media, also in terms of peer-reviewed literature. This is a major area of debate, and I assume it will continue for years to come. And I hope it doesn't really. My advice, my personal advice, we had the same issue I mentioned in my opening question, my answer to your opening question about BIM. Whatever digital twin is, we shouldn't argue for a long time over the definition. If the definition, like it took us 20 years to move from BIM to information management, we shouldn't do the same with digital twin. Let's give it an explicit name. Forget about the label. What is it exactly? And let's name it. So probably after, I don't know, we don't want after 20 years to say digital twin is about linking digital model or linking physical asset to their digital replica. No, remove the label and just give it something specific about it.
Yeah, makes sense. I think finally, for a bit of inspiration, this is just something I ask a lot of the academics who I interview, and that is, what advice would you give to early career researchers, especially when they are pursuing their, preferred topics of interest and trying to make impact or change in the built environment?
Yeah, I definitely, as you know, I have three important pieces of advice. I wish every early career academic or researcher can really take them on board. One of them is really, you have to research something that you are really passionate about, don't just follow the hype. Of course, it has to be aligned with a thematic area of research, but you have to be passionate about it. The second one, whatever you decide to do it properly. Unfortunately, don't rush to publish. Even if you delay your publication 15 months, 2 years, do it properly. It pays back to do high quality research. Spend some time really understanding the term, concepts, their delineation. Do some formal training on self-training about research methods. And the final one, really collaborate with industry. Without collaborating with industry, the research you can produce will never be the same. So collaboration with industry is really key.
And finally, a heartfelt thank you to all of our followers who have been with us so far. If you enjoyed this episode, then please follow us on LinkedIn or YouTube. And better yet, share this episode with your friends and colleagues.